Have you ever written a piece of code, maybe crossed your fingers and just hoped it worked? Come on, we've all been there. But what if there was a better way, a more rigorous, more reliable way to build software? Today we're going to dive into a framework that flips the script, turning coding from guesswork into a process of logical proof. You know, this quote right here, it gets to the absolute heart of it. This isn't just about getting your syntax right. It's about a fundamental shift in how you think. We're talking about climbing the ladder from hope to proof and ultimately to inevitability. The real goal isn't just to write code that works by chance. It's to build a solution that has to work because you've proven its logic from the ground up.
And this is the system that can get us there. It's called the correct code framework. And its central idea, well, it's a total game changer. The philosophy is this: you don't solve problems, you prove them. Instead of just jumping in and wrestling with code, you first build a logical proof that guarantees your solution is correct.
So, to make this whole thing feel a bit more concrete, the framework asks you to take on a new role. You're not just a coder anymore. Nope, you're a detective. And your job isn't to write lines of code, it's to investigate a problem, gather all the evidence, and build an absolutely airtight case for your solution. And this comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? The traditional way is totally reactive. You see a problem, you write some code, and then you spend what feels like forever debugging it. The detective mindset, though, is proactive. You start with the problem, you build the proof, and only then, once the case is solved, do you write the code. Debugging basically becomes a thing of the past because you establish correctness before you even started typing. All right, so how does this whole investigation actually work? Well, the framework gives us a super clear pipeline. It all starts at the crime scene, where we get the lay of the land. Then we identify our suspects. After that comes the interrogation, followed by organizing everything on our evidence board. Finally, all that work leads to an insight, the arrest, and wrapping it all up with the final case report. So let's walk through it step by step. Okay, first things first. Every good investigation starts by securing the crime scene. In our world, this means before you write a single line of code, you have to fully, completely understand the problem's environment. You're basically mapping out the entire territory, so you know exactly what you're dealing with. No surprises. So, analyzing the scene really means breaking it down into three key parts. First, you have the inputs. These are the facts of the case, which you already have to work with. Then, the constraints. These are the rules of the world, which you can and cannot do. And finally, the edge cases. These are the boundaries, right? The tricky situations where things tend to break. Getting these defined up front is absolutely crucial. And this is a major shift in thinking. We usually see constraints as annoying obstacles, things that get in our way. But in this framework, they're the complete opposite. Your constraints are your guide rails. They are the very architecture that shapes the correct solution by automatically ruling out all the wrong ones. They literally show you where to build. Okay, we've analyzed the scene, we know the rules. Now it's time to bring in the usual suspects. In software terms, these are what we call candidates. Every single possible element that could, maybe, be part of our final solution.
Now, our suspects can be pretty much anything. The values in an array, the indexes of those values, different states our system could be in, you name it. But here is the most important principle of this step. Nothing gets a free pass. Every single candidate is treated as suspicious until it has been properly interrogated and vetted. Trust no one.
All right, let's head into the interrogation room. This is the active part of the investigation. It's where we evaluate every single suspect or candidate using what the framework calls the scanner. We are putting every single possibility under the microscope. And this interrogation isn't random. It's systematic. For every candidate, we're asking three critical questions. 1. Does it even satisfy the basic conditions? 2. Does considering it actually move us closer to our goal? And 3, and this is the big one, does it violate any of the constraints we defined back at the crime scene? Any candidate that can't answer yes, yes, and no gets thrown out. So as we're gathering all this information from our interrogations, we can't just keep it all floating around in our heads. That's a recipe for disaster. A good detective needs an evidence board, right? A place to pin everything up. In our framework, this is the recorder, our system for storing what we've learned and, critically, for tracking the relationships between the clues. And this is where things get really cool, because the framework connects these abstract data structures we all know to real detective work. A hash map? That's not just a key value store. It's your tool for tracking identities. A set? That's how you validate if you've seen a suspect before. An array becomes your ordered memory, a timeline of events. This makes choosing the right data structure feel totally intuitive, not arbitrary. So with everything laid out on your evidence board, you can start to step back and ask these bigger picture questions. What do I already know based on what I've proven so far? Have I seen this pattern before in other cases? And what are the hidden connections between all these different pieces of evidence? This is where true pattern recognition kicks in, where you build a deep structural knowledge of the problem.
And now we're at the turning point. All the evidence has been collected, it's been organized, it's been analyzed. This is where all that rigorous upfront work really starts to pay off, as it leads us from insight to the final decision.
This framework totally reframes what insight even is. It's not some magical aha moment that comes out of nowhere. No, it's the logical, almost inevitable conclusion that emerges after you've done the work. The truth just reveals itself because you've systematically eliminated every other possibility. So the arrest is that final decision point. It's the moment you can definitively slam your hand on the table and say, this is the answer. You're not guessing, you're not hoping, you are acting on a proven outcome. The right candidates have been identified, all the rules have been followed, and the case is officially closed. The solution is locked in.
And that realization leads us to maybe the most powerful, paradigm-shifting idea in this entire framework. Think about it. If all the real work, the analysis, the interrogation, the proof, is done before you even open your editor, then what is the code itself? Well, it's not the act of thinking or problem-solving, it's just documentation. And that's the end goal right there. Your code becomes the clean, clear, final case report of a rigorous investigation, an investigation that has already been completed and proven correct. It's simply the artifact that records the solution you already found. You're no longer coding to find the answer, you're coding to document it.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. The next time you sit down to tackle a tough problem, just think about your process. Are you building a case, or are you just hoping it works? Are you just writing code and wishing for the best, or are you putting on your detective hat, building an airtight case and proving that your solution is absolutely inevitable?